The Toronto Raptors were criticized, and perhaps rightfully so, when they traded Pascal Siakam to the Indiana Pacers because it was deemed they just did not get enough of a return for a player of Pascal Siakam's caliber. But months later, as we get towards the end of 2024, this trade is starting to look a whole lot better, and I'll explain why in today's video. Let's get into it. This is Amateur Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content and videos like this and live streams on the channel. Drop a like if you enjoyed this one along the way. Subscribe to the channel if you want more Raptors content like it, and give the extra support to the channel by checking out the merch. I'm rocking the white hat here. We have it in black. We also have a white shirt. Use the link in the description to send me a message. Get your merch today with very fast shipping. But today we're focusing on the Raptors' trade of Pascal Siakam to the Indiana Pacers because, again, rightfully so, there was criticism, but this trade is starting to get better and better as time goes on. No, it still at the time probably wasn't a fantastic trade that the Raptors made when they sent Pascal Siakam to the Pacers at the 2024 trade deadline, but it was kind of a needs-must situation at that point. The Raptors were spiraling out of control in their season. They had aspirations to make the playoffs that year. It was looking pretty clear that the team was not good enough to do it, so they started to pull the plug on the season when they traded OG Anunoby to the New York Knicks. They got back RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly. We loved that trade at this point. That was right at the end of 2023. But then as we got closer to the deadline, the Raptors were shopping Siakam, and it seemed like the Indiana Pacers had the best offer available when they sent over this. The Raptors got Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round picks in the deal. Well, 3 first-round picks sounds pretty good, but when you dissect them a little bit further, you learn a lot about the caliber of picks that were there. We'll touch on those in just a second here. As far as the players were concerned, Jordan Nwora played okay for the Raptors for the rest of the season. He's now playing in Europe, no longer in the NBA. Bruce Brown still with the Raptors, as we know, and the Raptors, part of the return package the Raptors got was Bruce Brown, and part of that return was thinking you could flip Bruce Brown to get something else. That hasn't materialized as of yet, and I spoke about in the previous video why that's going to be really difficult to get a lot of value out of Bruce Brown, but let's go back to those 3 first-round picks that were involved in the deal. So the Raptors got a 2024 first-round pick via the Indiana Pacers, which ended up being the 19th overall pick. But you have to remember at the time, the Pacers were playing really good basketball, and then we're adding Pascal Siakam, and we're expected to get a whole lot better. But ended up being the 19th overall pick. That was pretty good. The Pacers went on to get to the conference finals, so that was impressive. But 19th overall pick, which the Raptors used under Jacoby Walter. He's looking like a good player. They also got what would become a 29th overall pick. It was a pick that was the worst of whatever the Houston Rockets, Clippers, or Thunder would have. It ended up being the Thunder, who were second in the NBA. So 29th overall pick. The Raptors flipped that to get Ochai Agbaji and Kelly Olynyk, and that's part of the reason why the trade is starting to look a whole lot better, because Ochai Agbaji all of a sudden looks fantastic for the Raptors this season, especially for a 29th overall pick. Kelly Olynyk also providing stuff to the team. Seems like a pretty good deal that helped make this Siakam trade look a little bit better, but the 2026 first-round pick is the real reason this trade is starting to look a ton better for the Raptors, because that was the 3rd pick in the deal, a 2026 first-round pick via the Indiana Pacers. And when the trade happened, like I said, it was a little bit underwhelming kind of looking at the return. We've got Pascal Siakam, 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA. But part of the things that decreases value, everyone knew the Raptors wanted to trade him because they were getting towards the deadline and a tanking season. Siakam was on an expiring contract. They kind of had to move him. And the team that traded for him, knowing he's on an expiring contract, knew they would have to be the team to pay him at the end of the year. The Indiana Pacers knew going into this trade that Pascal Siakam was looking for a max contract. Any team who was trading for Siakam knew they likely to pay him a max contract at the end of the season. So the Raptors decided they didn't want to pay that. They wanted to go in a different direction, whatever it was. At the moment of the trade, I thought it was a decent return, but it was underwhelming because it's like, okay, we should have been tanking before this. We should have traded him before this when his value was higher. Now we're just pretty much taking what we can get at this point. So an underwhelming trade because we should have gotten more out of a player of Pascal Siakam's caliber. But now we're looking at this trade in a bit of a better light, because when you look at the Indiana Pacers, yeah, they were playing great basketball last season. Yeah, they made the conference finals last season. Things have started to fall off a little bit for this team, and that's an understatement here. So far this season, the Indiana Pacers are 12-15 at the time of recording. I'm recording this yesterday from the day this will come out. They're 12-15 at the time of recording. They're about to play the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix. I would expect them to lose. They may not lose, but if they do, they're 12-16. And even if they do win, they're 13 and 15, not where this team really wants to be. And on top of the struggles for the team this season, you look at like the metrics for this team. So last year they had a bad defense. They knew they had a bad defense. But what they did was they limited opponent three-pointers. They would not give you open looks for three. So if that was giving up good looks at two, they were fine with that because they had enough three-point shooting themselves to make up for the point difference there. They're giving up a ton of twos, and then they're taking threes on the other side. They're kind of playing the math game there where we're going to give up the lower scored buckets, those 2-pointers, and we are going to play a very, very good offense. And that they did. They were fantastic on offense last season. But this season, not only has their offense taken a dip, their defense has taken probably an even bigger dip. Like last year, like I said, they wouldn't give up threes. This year, they've just taken a different approach. They give up everything. No matter what, you can get anything. They have the 22nd best defense in the NBA, 22nd out of 30. That's not very good. Funny enough, they're tied in their defensive rating exactly with the Toronto Raptors, who probably don't have a very good defense as well. So not really a great place you want to be in, but both teams have a defensive rating of 115.3. Once again, good for 22nd in the NBA. But their offensive rating is the bigger concern because that's supposed to make up for their defense. This year in offense, they have the 15th best offensive rating. The Indiana Pacers have an offensive rating of 112.2, a sharp contrast compared to where they were last season, and that's causing this poor record. But the best thing for the Raptors here, because the Raptors own that 2026 from the Pacers, so this year doesn't really matter, but these alarming statistics are kind of showcasing potentially the direction that this team is going. Because you look at the top of that team, Tyrese Haliburton, who's supposed to be the best player on this team. Injuries have been bothering him. They were bothering him at the end of last season when his stats took a dip. Like, start of last season, he was playing like an MVP candidate. Second half of the season, he wore down. Injuries started to take a little bit of a toll on his body, and he wasn't exactly the player he was at the start of the year. Now, granted, despite that, they made the conference finals. That was impressive. But this season, Haliburton's been good, just probably not as good as expected for the Pacers. So as Haliburton kind of goes through this season, are injuries still going to play a part going forward? Potentially so. On top of this, Pascal Siakam, we talked about it, got that max contract from the Indiana Pacers. He's making $42 million this season, and he's going to turn 31 in April. That was a 4-year max contract. So when Pascal Siakam turns 34 years old, he is still going to be on this max contract making $52 million. And with the aprons in play here in the NBA and Indiana being a relatively small market that doesn't really attract high caliber free agents, it's going to be tough to build a team around that contract. You look at other key pieces from this team like TJ McConnell. He's aging. He's 32 years old. So as a whole, this is a team that their best player is potentially going to be dealing with injuries. They haven't looked good this season on really either end of the floor. Their second best player is aging in Pascal Siakam. Another key piece is aging here. And through the pipeline of young talent here, they weren't able to add anything this season because they traded their pick to the Raptors, as we know, that 19th overall pick. Perhaps they can add something this season, but is that going to be enough for the 2025-2026 season? This is where the trade is starting to look a lot better because, we were expecting after making this trade, well, that 2026 pick, the Pacers are good now. Halliburton's young. Siakam's going to make them better. This team is only going to get better. That's probably not going to be a great pick the Raptors get. That's going to be a pick in the 20s in 2025, 2026, so the 2026 NBA draft. Now we're looking at this pick like, wow, could all of a sudden this become a lottery pick? And for a rebuilding Raptors team, what a welcome sight, because they have their own pick this year, and they also have their own pick next year. And they have that Pacers pick for next year, well, 2026. They have their own pick in 2025, along with a Portland Trailblazers second-round pick, which, by the way, is going to look pretty good as well. They also have, in 2026, their own first-round pick and the Pacers pick. This is a rebuilding Raptors team who also struggles to attract free agents. The best way for the Raptors to build their roster is through their NBA draft. I say that all the time. And now we've been presented with another fine opportunity to do that from the Indiana Pacers if these struggles continue. But based on what I've outlined and covered in today's video, my expectation is a lot of these struggles are going to continue for this team. And, even though I don't like to look at trades with hindsight in mind, like the trade at the time was okay. It's just underwhelming considering what they could have gotten previously for Siakam. But if we're looking at this trade all this time later, look, 19th overall pick, Jacob Walters, looking pretty good. that 29th overall pick was traded to the Jazz. OJ Abaji's looking pretty good. Kelly Olynyk's a decent vet to have for the team. Who knows what the Raps can get out of Bruce Brown. And then maybe the swing piece in this trade is that 2026 first-round pick, because it is starting to look a whole lot better for the Toronto Raptors. So probably still not a great trade, but it's getting better day by day. What do you make of this trade, looking back and looking with the hindsight lens that I presented in this video? Give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that's all for today's video. Drop a like if you did enjoy. Make sure you subscribe for more Raptors content and merch. Check out the Amateur Sports merch we have. Use the Kijiji link to send me a message. I've got all the merch on hand. I ship them out myself. You're getting high quality pieces coming directly from myself to vet the whole process. So support the channel in the best way possible and get some cool stuff in return. I'll see you again next time for another video.